All right, great. Good evening, folks. It's Vinod again, back with Hema Gandhi. Hema, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good, Vinod. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming online again and for this podcast. I know it's been a while. I told our audience that we would do a session on diabetes and more as a lifestyle disease introduction. And I think diabetes probably is a perfect topic to start with because India seems to be the diabetes capital of the world. And I thought
Yes.
there's nothing better to talk about than to understand what it is, to get the basics, and how people can manage it effectively. So I'll just start with a few questions. If you have to just explain, I mean, we did, when I was young, we did hear about diabetes, and people used to say, sugar, I have sugar, right? That's how I remember that my grandfather had it, and he used to take some injections. Why is it so? Why are we talking a lot about it today?
Well, we are talking a lot about diabetes. In fact, it's a very, very common name in every household, I would say. That's because India is now the diabetic capital of the world. It's sad to give this information, but that's the truth, how it stands. Like in amongst every six people you meet, one is at least diabetic. And worse than that, what has happened is, it's not that just now you mentioned that your grandfather, maybe you'd seen him, but now age is not a factor. We see it amongst the youngest of people, we see it in the young adults, we see it in the middle-aged people, apart from the older people also. So it's never, now age is not a factor at all. It's like every house, every person, almost other person is complaining about pre-diabetic or being diabetic.
But why?
And not even the gender matters, now it's male or females, everybody has this kind of issue. So that is why, I think this is the most common lifestyle disorder that we keep hearing about.
Like, what's changed here, man? Like, if you have to tell why so much prevalence now versus maybe a generation or two ago, what has changed?
Well, in fact, there has been a good thing. Like we have a better infrastructure, we have better medical facilities, we have better, screening systems, we have better institutes, hospitals, doctors. Yet we have become worse in this. And I would say that a simple reason is that this is the most misunderstood disorder. And though I say it's a lifestyle disorder, and I would also say that it is reversible. I say it very clearly that it is a reversible disorder. Once we can easily wean off our medications. We do not once we have been given the medications or we have been predicted that you are a diabetic person doesn't mean that we're doomed for life and we would be a diabetic always. But sadly, it is most misunderstood because we are looking at the surface level. We're not looking into the depth of it. We're not understanding the root cause. Until we don't do that, how do we make those changes and how do we, rectify or wean off those medications? Still, we don't understand what exactly is going in wrong. So we are just looking at the superficial things. Like we are getting concerned about, what? We are just concerned about what is the sugar levels. But that's the thing we should be least focusing on. We need
Okay.
to focus on things like our cells are starved. That's the
Mhm.
most important message a diabetic person should understand, that the cells are starved, it's lacking in nutrients. There is a problem with your lifestyle which needs to be changed. You need to work on it, your lifestyle. That would give the nutrients to the cells, that would revive them and, reverse this. And not just keep checking the sugar levels or, in fact, blaming sugar. I eat sugar and so I should not be eating sugar and I'm a diabetic person. So that is where, and this misinformation has been, said again and again. It's coming to us multiple times, and it is coming to us so loudly that it's like seems like the truth, that diabetes, once we have diabetes, we need to quit sugar and we just need to keep regulating the blood sugar levels and we need to just be on medications lifelong. And things like don't eat sugar or don't eat sweet things, sweet fruits, anything. It's again and again said so loudly that we start believing it. That's the truth. That's what seems like the truth. But
Got it.
it's not so.
So you're saying you can have you may be diabetic, but sugar is not a culprit. Is that what you're
No,
saying? It's
yes, that's what
okay.
I'm saying.
Can you explain? I mean, I'm not able to get that clearly.
Yeah, so obviously, so what we need to understand basically that what is happening inside with the food, what is the role of the insulin hormone, all of that. So I wouldn't be going in too much of depth, but simply explaining it is that,
Mm-hmm.
whenever we eat food, that gets converted into glucose, which comes into our blood. It is absorbed from the intestine into the blood, and the blood sugar levels rise. Obviously, if there's more glucose in the blood, the sugar levels would rise. At that time, the pancreas gets a notification. Secretes the insulin, which is a hormone, which picks up the glucose and delivers it to the different cells. So whether it's the muscle cells or the fat cells, to the entire body, the glucose is being delivered where it is stored and kept and used as and when needed. That glucose is converted into energy, and that's the energy which we use the entire day, whether we are sleeping, whether we are eating, whether we are working, whether we are walking. Every time we need energy for all our day to day activities. So the cells keep converting the glucose into energy. We keep using that energy, and the cells keep refilling themselves with the glucose which comes in from the food. That's the reason why we humans need to eat the entire day. We can't be like without eating. So we need to eat from time to time to refuel ourselves, the energy which we're using. And it is the responsibility of the insulin to pick up the glucose and send it to the cells. So if I talk about in a real life example, it's like something like, you can say like ration, we bring the ration at home, we bring our entire month's supplies, and then there is a person or maybe ourselves, we like kind of put it into jars, we place it on shelves, we place it at particular areas in the kitchen itself, and when as and when needed we just take out from our supplies. So that person is insulin. Insulin has this role of delivering it and keeping it at places where it would be needed. And when the insulin resistance comes in, that's where the problems arise. So, what is the insulin doing? It's picking up the glucose, it goes and knocks at the cell door. And the cells open the door, the glucose is deposited inside, the insulin's role is done.
Okay.
But when insulin resistance comes in, that is the time when the cells don't hear the knocking. So it goes and knocks, but the cells don't open the door. So the insulin cannot put in the glucose. The glucose stays in the blood. The glucose level is still high. The sugar level, as they call it, is still high. The pancreas get this message that there's still sugar in the blood.
So
So it
produce
is going
more.
to produce more insulin, right? And then more insulin will go back, knock on the cell. This time it's not knocking, it's basically hammering. So it's knocking louder and louder. So then the cell hears it, opens it, takes it in. That's the time when we say that the insulin resistance is setting in,
Mm.
and could be, termed as the pre-diabetic stage, as they call it. And then
Okay.
slowly, as in the pancreas regularly needs to produce more and more insulin, that is the time when it is getting more exerted. It's getting a pressure on itself. It has to work harder. So
Okay.
when this is happening, slowly the insulin secretion gets decreased. The pancreas is now overworked and it is not able to produce that much insulin. And that is when there is not enough insulin to take away the glucose. And that's when we are prescribed the medicines. And if not taken care of, if we are not making any changes, just popping the pills, slowly we move on to insulin shots also. So that is how it keeps on building up, and we haven't done any changes because we think that we've taken the medicine and now the sugar levels are showing good on the paper. But the trouble is too much. Like, it's like delivering, knocking. Why are the cells not opening? Why is the insulin not able to knock harder? What is the problem? There's too much to look into. It's not
Uh,
just the sugar
I
levels there.
I actually have a
That's
follow up question to what you explained. First thing is, why didn't the cell open the door which it was opening before? Second is this extra glucose and sugar that you said is in the blood. What happens if it increases, or what if it keeps staying in the blood? What happens?
Yes, so there, the first thing that why is it not opening is exactly what I'm talking about, is because of our lifestyle changes. So there are certain changes happened in the cell structure, and it is not able to open the door. So you can even give an example of a lock and key. So some changes happen in the coding of the lock, and that key is now not setting into that lock. So it has reset itself and not allowing that key to open it. That is the problem. So, and that resetting happened because of the lifestyle issues. Lifestyle issues like, maybe skipping meals, even simple things like this, sleeping too late, or not taking care of what we are eating, when are we eating, how are we eating, all of it matters. So that is what would change the cell structure inside. It's not just that one spoon of sugar that we eat is going to go and do everything. It is too many things involved. And the second thing that you said, that where does the sugar go? The sugar, the glucose is then going to go out of the kidney. So then the kidneys are also under pressure because they need to filter out
Ah,
what they were actually supposed to retain. And that is why I say the cells are starved, because the nutrients are going down the drain instead of
oh,
going to the cells. There is a wastage, complete wastage of nutrients which we are eating. So even if they're eating, if you notice somebody who's been a diabetic person for years, you would see their muscles are wasted. So they would have very thin, limbs,
right.
and but they have a pot belly. They would always have a pot belly. So that's because the muscles are getting wasted, they're not getting the nutrients needed for the
Nutrients.
survival. Yes. And that's when the second part of diabetes also sets in. So you must have heard about, a diabetic person would always suffer from leg pain, would always have retinal issues later in the later stages, and maybe, would have kidney issues also. So that's because the nerves are getting damaged. So the nerves are not getting their proper nutrients to function properly. Nothing is functioning inside properly. And that is the reason why we move on to these stages, that they are not able to heal themselves quickly. They have, eye problems, they have kidney problems, and so much more. That is
So
the reason.
it kind of gets compounded, the effects of having the sugar in
Yes.
the body over a period
Yes.
of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And lack of nutrients.
got
Yeah.
it, got it. So one thing that I probably want to elaborate a little more is how can you mentioned about the lifestyle factors. You mentioned about a bit of sleep and I think the timing of food or some kind of food, right? When you say lifestyle changes, I mean, which probably kind of goes back to what we started the conversation with, that why so many people are having it now versus before, or maybe was there no awareness earlier, I don't know. What How would you tell people that okay, this is a reasonable lifestyle for you to have so as to reduce the occurrence of or the chances of you having diabetes?
Well, a reasonable lifestyle is always a very holistic lifestyle. We cannot focus on just one point. So, definitely looking into our food habits is the first thing that I would recommend. So, we are always worried about what to eat, but we should also worry about how are we eating apart from what to eat. So if you are on the go, you are just eating, picking up something and walking around for work or rushing to some place, and you are eating while in that rush or in that stressful period, that is a major problem when we say, because why that food is not getting digested. That is, stress is not letting the food get digested. So if you remember, we come back to the point one, which I said, that
Yeah.
we should sit down and eat, and we should focus on the food. So the first habit that we should always maintain is every time we're eating, we need to sit. We need to sit and we need to switch off the outer senses and we need to switch on the inner senses. That's very important. It might sound like, why should we do it? But it is so essential, so that the food gets digested well, absorbed well, and then the insulin can do its work on its own. If it reaches the bloodstream in the proper way, at the proper timing, that is so important. Again, skipping meals, if we were supposed to eat at a particular time and we just ignored that time because we were busy with something else, so here the entire body is ready with everything that it had to be ready with to take that meal in, but the meal never came in. So that is creating a chaos inside again. So these little lifestyle things, again, our sleep, that is so, so important. We think that we can sleep a little late, we can wake up later, we can cover up on sleeps on the weekends. but all of it does not work. Compromising on sleep never works because insulin is also a hormone, and when the
Mm-hmm.
sleep hormone is disturbed, then again the insulin hormone is also disturbed. When we're not sleeping on
Okay.
time, our stress hormone is always high. The cortisol hormone is always high. So, what is the cortisol hormone doing? It's a good hormone. It's not a bad hormone. Everybody's made a villain out of this poor hormone. But when it is high, it does not let the other hormones work properly.
It's like
So,
a
the
higher
insulin.
priority.
Yes, it it takes the priority. So the thyroid is not working properly, the insulin hormone is not, the growth hormone is not being secreted. So all of it is not happening, and then it's not able to. And slowly, all these problems, being sedentary, being inactive, a whole day we've been sitting, there has been no movement, the blood hasn't circulated well, all of this leads to issues of the insulin resistance that I was talking about. Apart from that, there are certain things which are not in our hand, like, grave illnesses, being on steroids for a long time. If you're pregnant, even that might create certain situations in the body which can lead to, the gestational diabetes. So there are different kinds of diabetes. Also, what we are today talking about is basically diabetes 2, which happens due to lifestyle. And then, yes, a lot of people say that it's in my genes. I have it from my parents or grandparents, so I am doomed to have diabetes, but it's not like that. Yes, it
Okay.
might be loaded because it's there in your genes, but the trigger is your lifestyle only. You trigger it only when you go for a wrong kind of a lifestyle. So I always say it's your habits which you get, genetically, not your diseases. If you keep working, if you don't change your habits, which had actually triggered diabetes in our ancestors, then we are also going to suffer the same thing. But if we do work on our lifestyle, if we do look into that, then we would definitely not be, getting it, inheriting it genetically. That's how it is.
Got interesting. So essentially, you said the same goes back to eating the food in a very calm, composed environment and giving it the importance that it deserves. Of course,
Yes, yes.
sleep, I think even Matt Walker was known as the father of sleep, and Huberman says say the same thing. You mentioned that, never compromise on sleep. I mean, you can probably go a little haywire on the other parts, but never compromise on sleep. And so,
Absolutely.
what I find it more interesting is you said sedentary life, the blood flow, etc., also is a great cause, which kind of boils down to humans moving a lot more than what they should be. How does that contribute to, let's say, diabetes, like lack of movement or being a little lazy and sedentary? Why does that contribute to, let's say, pre-diabetic or diabetes?
See, we spoke about the cell structure. We spoke about how the cell structure changes. So, all the what insulin is going to do is take the glucose and deposit it into the muscle cells and the fat cells. But here, the muscle cells are not alert. They are not ready to take anything. So, why would they
Okay,
open the door to the insulin while it's knocking? Because the muscles, the simple rule is you use it and you maintain it. You don't use them, you lose them. So you are literally wasting away your muscle cells. They are not alert. They are not in need of the supply. So they are not bothered to take that, what the insulin is getting in. So where we can be taking calcium pills, we can be taking vitamin D and so much more, but that is actually accepted by our body only when it really needs it, when it is in that activated mode. But if it is not, it is inactive, then it would not be interested in anything of this kind. And when we
got
were
it.
talking nutrients, you asked that where is the glucose going. So
Mm,
when I said there's a wastage, then there is a wastage of all these vitamins. So B, D3, your vitamin E, K, A, all of them are getting lost, and so many minerals like chromium, zinc, selenium, all of it is getting wasted, and that is what the diet should be having, and we are actually not including it into our food plan. And neither are we thinking about being more active or exercising or worrying about our sleep timings. Nothing is being taken care of. We just think that
okay.
popping the pill is enough.
Okay. So
And
if I
yeah, yeah, tell me.
got it, sorry. So if I have to summarize it for audience, if I'm not physically very active, if I'm not sleeping as I should be, then a bunch of these supplements, nutrients are actually going down the drain. Your body is not
Yes,
utilizing them well.
absolutely.
Wow. Okay, that's quite interesting. So I cannot undo the damage I've done to myself with supplements any which way. So those things are not going to help at all if you don't maintain an
We
active
can
lifestyle.
do that. We can do that. Yes, exactly. You said it yourself. When we maintain a good lifestyle, when we have a good base diet, then these supplements are going to work wonders for us. But if we're
Otherwise,
not doing that,
the doors don't open,
yeah,
so nothing
nothing
gets
happens.
absorbed. Wow,
Yes,
crazy. So that kind of then explains why the lifestyle factors are contributing a lot more to the cases that are
absolutely.
happening now. So that kind of comes to the next question, like how soon can people realize, let's say, sitting at home and figuring out, like you said about the gut part, right? Like Bristol chart, and you can figure out if your intestine is working fine. Can people sitting at home kind of roughly get a idea of that I'm actually getting into the diabetic lane?
Yeah. Well, it's not as clear as the Bristol stool chart, but yes, there are certain things which we can always look into. As I already said, that if somebody has had a illness or has been on steroids or a pregnant person, they should keep an eye on their sugar levels. Apart from that, if your lipid profile is messed up, then the first thing that you need to do is check your sugar levels. And then a person can always look for some symptoms like, are you having a lot of sugar cravings? Are
Mm.
you having certain crashes through the day, like energy slumps, feeling low suddenly through the in between the day somewhere? Or are you having something like, for females, I could say irregular periods? Or again, if you have a stubborn belly fat, which is just not budging, even if you've done everything, you've tried everything. Apart from that, a lot of thirst and a lot of urination has also been found to be a symptom for diabetic people. A lot of them who come in to me have always said that I am, very frequently using the loo. As soon as I drink water, I need to use the loo. So that is one thing. And then I have personally seen it in most of my clients is some pigmentation. So dark pigmentation around the neck area,
Ah.
the armpit area, that is also a sign of sugar levels going haywire, because again, as I said, the cells are not getting what they need, so then they are reflecting. So our body always whispers and then screams, so we need to hear the little whispers and
So
then understand.
the dark spots that we see on some face discoloration, is that kind of what you're talking about? I've seen in some faces.
Generally not on the face, not on the face. That my face and arms is basically more of a liver issue. But
Okay,
what I've seen is here on the neck area, the throat area, maybe it becomes darker than the other parts of the body. So that, and maybe somewhere around the armpits also, when I ask them to check on that, that has also been found. But the neck area, I've seen it very often. So that is one thing.
okay. How much of an impact will then alcohol have on people who probably are having diabetes?
Alcohol doesn't have a good impact on anybody, whether diabetic or not diabetic. So the best thing to do with alcohol is just to keep it away from us. That's the best thing I can say about alcohol. And which one is the best, the red wine or this wine? Nothing is good for the heart or the body. So I would just say that stay away from it. An occasional drink, maybe somebody wants to enjoy in social areas, that's different. But I would always say that's an anti-nutrient, a complete anti-nutrient. So why put it in our body? Knowingly, why would we want to put it in our body?
Got it. So I think I'll just, I think we're running short of time. We'll wrap up with some positive message for people who are probably on the diabetic lane, getting into the, the pre-diabetes and slightly on the diabetic path and taking medications. What lifestyle changes can they do uh, that can help them reverse this reversible disease or condition?
Well, to quickly sum up a few lifestyle changes, one thing which we haven't yet spoken about is one big factor is stress. So even more than sugar, the stress affects our sugar levels. So first thing is to manage stress. If we are stressing over every small thing, if we are literally not letting our body, bounce back from the stress of the day, then we are really, I mean, it's like, 24/7 being in the stressful mode. So that's not a good sign. So that is why I keep on saying again, when we are eating,
Mm.
we should move the stress to the rest and digest mode. That is so important. So stress is something we need to handle. We need to be active. And then, of course, there is this loose advice of go lose weight if you want to, reverse or check your sugar levels. So this advice really doesn't work, because when we hear lose weight, we are only pursuing the numbers on the scale. But what actually we need to do is lose the fat around the visceral organs.
Uh,
And of course, as I said, that we for that we need this holistic approach. So for this advice, instead of just going for walks, we need to look into proper exercise. Strength training is one exercise which has helped all my diabetic clients, because again, as I said, they use their muscles in that. When
yeah.
you're doing strength training, there is muscle usage, and then the demand comes in, and then the cells convert, their structures change back to normal again, and they are ready to open doors happily and willingly, and the insulin sensitivity again sets in. So that is so
Mm,
important. Walks are important. I would never say that walks are not important, but if you're thinking that it's just walking which would help you, that is not enough. And then, of
okay.
course, sleep. Sleep is mandatory. We need to sleep on time, not thinking that any time is a good time. There is a regulated time. So, anywhere between 9 to 11 p.m., we should be sleeping, and we should be getting a good 6 to 7 hours of sleep, so that the body gets the time to secrete those hormones and work properly
Mm,
and use them. That is
got
so
it.
important.
Got it. So it's the basics, right? Eat food in a calm, composed environment. Don't get stressed. I think that's more important. Thirdly, move a lot, and people who are actually walking a lot but still can't see the numbers going down on the sugar levels, lift some weights, guys. That's on girls, both of you, right? I think people need to start getting into that mode. I think the prevalence of lifting weights in India is quite low.
Yes.
I think that's something that I've been telling people that they should. Hopefully, I think the knowledge that they gain from this session will catapult them or motivate some of them to start lifting weights. It will help them build a little bit of muscle so that the cells can open up and
Yes.
insulin can carry it and then get absorbed. All right, Emma, thanks a lot. I think in the next session we'll probably cover one more lifestyle disease. I'll prepare something on those lines and I'll be in touch. And
Sure.
okay, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment and share and like this video if you found this informative. Thank you so much and have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye bye.